Greetings! Welcome to the devlog for Experimental Build 2 of Update 117 of Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. We're going to start, as always, with a quick sound check. Make sure speakers aren't up too high. Ah, wonderful. Never get tired of shooting the glass there. So what have we got for you this week? Well, related to glass and the doors in front of me, I have finally, after way too long, gotten back into our scene fight panel the ability to reset the windows and doors. Along with that, I've got a whole bunch of new functionality related to the doors, and this is all stuff that is on the way to making it, having all of the supporting systems there so that modders who make custom scenes can actually utilize the doors. There's a couple things I need to get working before that, and I got a bunch of those done today. You'll also notice a little thing that I finally got around to doing on all of our little panels here, which is that we actually have a visually changing toggle button showing us our lock versus unlock behavior. Well done, Anton. Only took you like 7 or 8 years to do that. So yeah, something interesting happened when I reset the doors here, and we will notice this by actually coming up here and looking at the deadbolt on the door. We can see that this one says A07. Every scene, which right now it's just the grill house, that utilizes the scene fight panel fully and configures itself and has doors and windows, has an internal list of valid keys that can be randomly used in the scene. So every time I hit this should, there we go. Now the door says D84D. Now it says C001. I have this scene set up to use 4 different keys. What's cool about that is that if we then set up a patrol or guards, actually, it might just be patrols at the moment. For this location, let's just pick a group size of 4, max pop cap 4, etc. And spawn group. I have no idea where it's going to place those. Oh, right here. Convenient! Thank you for your service. All right. And then once that guard auto-destructs and deletes itself, you will see that it has dropped a key. Not the key we needed. It will a guard will essentially drop a random key that is currently being used in the scene in some fashion. So one of the doors in here uses A07. This one right here. So we can just insert this in. Unlock it, open the door. There we go. And that's how that system now works. And so, yeah, the whole idea of what I eventually want to set this up... Oh, goodness. Trying to talk to the fine people at home. There we go. So yeah, as I was saying, the goal eventually is to make it so that one can, if one is doing a modded scene, that you'll be able to sort of like lay down a component or make a call into a script manager to spawn a door configured a certain way in a specific point. There's still a bunch of other work that you'll have to do as a map maker to actually make sure these work right. You'll have to use consistent dimensions, have your nav mesh set up a certain way. I'm going to put together a little doc for the modders just to make that a bit smoother. But I've gotten a good chunk of the way there. I have to abstract the system a little bit further to make it work. But the most important part, which is the fact that this panel can, when it just is in a scene that has doors and has the scene point configurator, now dynamically adds these buttons. If there aren't doors and windows, the buttons, this whole part of the panel won't even be present. Yeah, and it allows a whole bunch of extra configuration that I think will be interesting. And oh yeah, importantly, if you don't want to have to kill patrolling SOSIGs to be able to unlock the doors, under utility, you can see all 8 of the keys that are present, and the deadbolt has the ability to be configured into all 8 of those. So yeah, let's see here. Random next thing up. This has been requested for a while in our firearm category of things. If we grab our Brown Bess here, you'll notice there's now an extra object down at the bottom. That is right. I have actually finally gotten in a bayonet for the Brown Bess. Ha! Get that on. Beautiful. One thing as well, a bunch of folks had asked if I could extend the foregrip trigger for the Brown Bess way to the end, which I have now. So you can, in fact, grab it at the end here to be able to more easily operate it. I just realized I may have made... Okay, cool. When you've got the bayonet, you definitely have to make sure your hand is actually over the ramrod and not the bayonet, or you will grab it. But yeah, so should be able to operate this and, of course, enjoy... Let's see here. Let's actually double check that it actually is functioning just with our creepily naked Sosig. Oh, come on. There we go. Yup. Definitely working. Definitely working as designed. I love VR so much. Oh, that's fantastic. Cool. So that is in. What's the next thing that I want to show off? I'm actually going to walk over to my computer monitor because I have my list up. For those of you who enjoy configuring scopes in all sorts of interesting ways, changing your reticle colors and settings, all of the scope settings now actually get properly serialized and deserialized. So if you set this up and then go and actually save this, let's go do a new scan here. Lee, scan items on shelf, save to file. This should, air quotes, yes, beautiful. Our scope is still properly configured. So you can now, this is especially important to any of you who've played or done a bunch of long-range sniping in H3 with any sort of muzzle device. Know that muzzle devices can not only impact the mechanical accuracy of the platform that you're firing, but they also can alter, they have what's called a fixed offset of their point of aim. So just by putting a suppressor on, instead of hitting dead center, you might hit a little bit high and a little bit to the right. And so you may need to actually adjust your scope if you're trying to engage at 200, 300, 500 meters or further. Because of the fact that this didn't save, this was kind of a pain in the butt to do with saved guns. Now it will actually save all of your zero settings on your scope. So there you have it. Lee Enfield, Mark Ruined. I love you. Let's jump over to our new scene, though. So, welcome back to our still very, very work in progress qualification range. I did not get as much done on this as I wanted this week because I was working on all of the other sort of fixes and systemic enhancements.
Play one of the bad wieners next time.
But, as you can see, there was a Sosig speaking behind me because, A, we've got some new range wiener Sosigs. I got an Ear Pro set of props in that had been meaning to get in for quite a while, and you will see that a number of Sosigs are filing into the range, and I now have a full behavior loop for these working. I actually spawned them in with not that much ammo right at the moment, just to make sure that the behavior loop is working. So that one actually went ahead and fired its gun, realized it only had one mag left, and is walking over to the ammo station here. That one will do the same in a moment. Might as well load this up. While I'm talking about that, I ended up actually recoding a whole bunch of the way that the sequences on these work. So I had stupidly coded a whole bunch of the target sequence game as global for the entire scene. Instead of local to the lane, it is now local to the lane. You'll notice this didn't pop up here. That's because a Sosig has reserved that lane. I need to actually like pop something up where the panel would normally appear. But our sequence stuff now works as I showed off before. The color changing now works, although for some reason it causes all the targets to flip down when I would be a devlog without a bug. Green. So yeah, so you can now... That isn't... Hey, that's not green, that's blue. Oh, it's just because I wrote green. So yeah, so the Sosigs now spawn with a range of weapons. Ha! Let's see what this one. This is one firing an M1 carbine.
I think they're neat.
Yep. Also, importantly, I fixed a long-standing bug where Sosigs in the idle or path-through to states would not actually talk. They now properly talk. So, as we all know, we enjoy our Sosigs far too chatty. So yeah, so this one is coming up to shoot here. That one, I believe, ran out of ammo, and so when they run out of ammo...
I don't have feet either.
They're going to come over here, They path on directly over to the ammo station.
It's real
Go
time
there.
standing at
And then,
attention all the time.
and then walk back. That one has now been reloaded
All
with
the
ammo.
terrible coding mistakes that brought me here. Okay, took my flashlight.
Your guns are so loud. I'm going to walk away from the very loud guns so that I can think. There we go. So yeah, so that now that I have the behavior loop in and it is functioning, I actually ended up finding like some major bugs in my SOSIG Path 2 system that have been present this whole time from doing this. But now that this is all in, there's a number of other behaviors that I want to add. Right now, if a SOSIG just loses its gun, like if I just grab him here and just take his gun, I'm not quite sure what he'll do. I think he'll walk over to his station, and then I think he'll just go in an infinite loop, sadly walking back and forth between Plinth and the ammo station, being unable to fire a gun. Although I might be able to leave that there, and he might pick it up. But I'm eventually going to make it so that if they lose their gun somehow, they can get re-equipped at that station, or maybe I'll even create a second station that has some firearms in it. And in general, this is just a scaffold of behavior. I might be able to add other sorts of behavioral stations as well. I might add a little like a food cart that they might hang out with. Yeah, and just get some other behavior branching in. This is sort of uncharted territory for me, having their behavior states be a little more complex than just do exactly one thing forever, or just cycle between investigating and combat. But I'm liking it so far, and I already like the vibe that it generates in this scene. So I hope you all end up enjoying it as much as I do. Let's shoot a couple targets. I haven't used the ACOG in a while. Okay. 100, 150, 200. Wonderful. Oh, it just feels delightful to be standing here, hearing gunfire on both sides. The simulated range experience. Oh yeah, he's so confused. He's like, I don't have a gun! He's just spinning in place like they were last week when they got ammo. We'll fix that this week, though. Anywho, let's jump out of VR and I'll talk about the other little fixes and changes and additions in this update so far and what else I'm working on. Yo! So, what else is in this update? I managed to get the last of the dynamic furniture items that I had promised like a bajillion years ago into the game. It's basically like a couple clothing racks, a shopping cart, and a table with casters. Everything else that was part of that set that I made back then were like static environment objects that needed to be actually like baked into a scene, but a couple of them were on casters, so they're mobile, so they're in. The other stuff, let's see here. We talked about the panels. We talked about all of the door changes, the pipscope stuff. Oh, there's an optimization here that is courtesy of City Robo in the community that basically changes the way that attachments are parented into the hierarchy of a gun. That should result in performance improvements in certain circumstances. What it effectively does is it's called flattens the hierarchy of the gun a little bit. And this should matter the most in circumstances where you are affixing like rail adapters to a gun. So if you're going like pistol adapter, riser, scope, this should now be way more efficient because just there are certain costs in Unity that gets almost exponentially higher as transform depth increases. And so this should definitely help that context, as well as like any of the old attachment based module mods. Anything that runs on the older systems should work better. With this, even City said he had got sort of inconsistent results back on what the performance improvements were, but I can definitely just like looking at the code see that there would be certain moments where this will help a bunch. So yeah, so that's in there. The Stevens 124C has a suppressor mount. I fixed a couple pools for take and hold and fixed some issues with the slingshot. So yeah, in terms of what else is going on, that obviously I just want to make sure, because in this update there actually are some fairly significant back-end systemic changes that like could break something. So, but as long as nothing is super broken, I'm probably gonna just move this up to alpha next week, just because all of the things that I'm going to do, this is going to be a fairly tight update cycle, and everything else that I'm going to do with this in update 117 is related to that qualification range and finishing that up. And that shouldn't be sort of broad-based code changes that risk damaging things that modders have made. So, but yeah, I'm gonna work on that. And as I said, my goal is to get the door stuff fully internally abstracted, and then once it's abstracted, I can just put a very simple doc together, hand it over to the mod community for the folks who like making maps, and then they will be able to fairly trivially insert the destructible doors and keys, and making sure those are all synced into their maps. There'll be a bunch of utility functions that they'll be able to call and utilize for that. And hopefully that's, I know a whole bunch of folks have been like, it'd be really nice to have the doors in more than one scene, Anton. Well, two if you count bullshoot. But that is, we are on the cusp of making that dramatically easier to manage, reset, spawn, etc. I can't spawn them. This was asked. I can't just make them a virtual object that you can drag around. They are a very brittle, complicated physics assemblage. Even when I spawn the door in, a whole bunch of that had to be done at a very specific order. Otherwise, the like joint force of the broken assemblage that is disabled in the door would destabilize and fall apart. It was very difficult to get working in the first place. So they basically have to be spawned directly into the point and rotation that they are ever going to be in. So they're not something that I can like put into the environment and have you drag them around using the in-game tools. They're like the most complicated object in the entire game. So at least from a physics standpoint. So it's kind of amazing that they worked. I was definitely in a very special headspace when I figured out how to get that all done. I don't know if I could do it again now if I wanted to. So obsession is funny like that. Anywho, I hope you enjoy the new scene and have a wonderful week. As always, report bugs if you run into them. And I will see you all next week with some even more fun in that scene. And hopefully, you modder folks, I'll have some door-tacular stuff ready for you. Have a great weekend. Peace.